Irish spirituality, then and now. This program explored the strength of the Celtic spiritual heritage, still very alive today in spite of enormous changes in Irish communities. Through the ancient art of storytelling and heartfelt conversations with representatives from pagan, druidic and shamanic traditions, you can embark into a wonderful world of Irish festival, myth and legends, fairies and leprechauns, shamanic drumming and journeying, and druidic ceremonies at the Hill of Tara. Learning how it has evolved over the years and exploring the crucial role of these ancient beliefs in today's modern society. Our next guest in this program is John Boker, who leads drumming workshops nationwide. He explains to us how he was led to facilitate drumming workshops at the time of the Irish festivals, the healing aspect of his work, and how it can help to build communities. So John, I would like to ask you about the drumming that you teach.
The style of drumming we're working very much to do with teamwork, in that we'll have several rhythms that come together, everyone choosing a particular part within that rhythm. Non-verbal communication happening, we're just playing music together. No one's showing off, experienced drummers helping out the new drummers. Strict no drugs, no alcohol, and quickly we find that we get very giddy and playful and high and safely enter magic space. Very healthy. We'll celebrate everyone in that community for their power, noticing how powerful everyone is there. A lot of the teenagers taking on the really fast rhythms. A lot of the women taking on the powerful bass rhythms, played with sticks on the big drums, noticing how powerful they are, really sensing that. Really good for a community to actually settle into rhythm together.
And where would you see the link with Irish spirituality?
We're sort of evolving, aren't we, I think, at the moment. The Irish landscape is so completely spiritual, and all the many, many temple spaces that date back to so long ago, and the particular alignments to the calendar. So what we're trying to do with the drum thing is honour the Celtic calendar in particular. So we'll gather at the equinoxes, the solstice, and the cross-quarterly fire festivals, trying to reseed some energy back into those particular times. It's just so apparent that those alignments are there. Newgrange to midwinter, Nouth and Douth to the equinox. That's when the sun comes into those chambers and illuminates those spirals. But not only there, right across Ireland, you've got all these temples. And it seems to me the clue really is that that's when we gather, that right across the planet then we look to Native America, we look to Africa, the stone circles in Gambia, the stone circles in Senegal, all do the same things. They all have these alignments. China, Japan, North Africa, we share a common heritage where people gathered at certain times, and it's coming from many teachers that to gather at those times we actually share a consciousness, and very healthy for a sort of peaceful path, noticing the unity of humanity, and possibly important that we do actually link up carefully with those natural rhythms again, trying to come back to a harmony with nature.
Would you see drumming as a kind of prayer?
The tradition of African drumming is that the drums repeat mantra, a sacred mantra. For instance, in the Sufi tradition you have a very famous chant, La ilaha illallah, which means there is only one God, there is only one Allah, La ilaha illallah. And the drums actually repeat that mantra. You actually play that rhythm on the drum, La ilaha illallah, La ilaha illallah. So the idea is the drums are speaking, the drums are talking.
John, can you tell me about the tree healing enchantments?
In Celtic lore, you often had triunes, a threefold way of understanding things. And I came across this thing of the threefold healing enchantments being geomancy, the art of placement within the landscape, music, and potions. Each are seen as being important to keep us healthy and spiritually healthy.
Would geomancy be a bit like Feng Shui then?
Exactly. If we look into the landscape of Ireland, it's really clear how sophisticated the ancient people were in their placement. Through East Clare, an alignment going 30 miles of fairy forts, standing stones, cairns. This is only one. If you begin to look into alignments, Ireland is absolutely laced with a spider web. And those particular temple spaces set in these beautiful harmonious spots to gather the morning light through the entrance, and probably morning light at a specific time of the year. You have in the Celtic mythology of the 13 trees of the year, and these would often be placed in their proper positions of north for the birch and oak for the south, around a house or around a temple. So placing things carefully in the landscape, creating harmony and a real sense of well-being. We've lost that one. Misunderstanding of how important that is. We don't just lock ourselves away in concrete. We receive nourishment from our beautiful earth. The second one, music. We have this tradition passed through of how important the bards were, how the bards could criticise the king. The bards would speak their truth, and the poetry would be the herbal lore and the mystical lore. It was learnt by rhyme and with music so that we could digest this information and pass it on. And an art form that we hear from the African tradition as well, that they have the same tradition of the bard. They would call it the griot. The griot can criticise the king, can criticise anyone, but would see it as their sacred duty that music should be used for healing. If you're a musician, the tradition is you have a duty to use your skills for healing and not to misuse it for personal gain. The third tradition, the third healing enchantment, potions, only to be used in emergencies because they're the most dangerous. So if you're very sick, you take a healing herb. That's the only time you'd use them. Mm-hmm. And in our culture, we're misusing potions. We're taking sacred substances all the time that come from world tradition. Chocolate was used by the Aztecs as a sacred potion. Alcohol was used by the Celts, again, for strict use in ritual. Tobacco is a Native American ritual substance, only used for peace. We misuse them. And our concept of them has nothing to do with spirituality or magic. It's mundane. But in a way, we're looking to those substances to feed us something, and they can't, because we've overused them. So if we look to the other two, music and geomancy, creating a temple, a beautiful space in as natural an environment as possible, and creating natural healing music there with the intention of healing. And then we have this idea that intention plus music equals healing. That simple formula, that our intention actually changes reality. That's a very ancient idea that's being reseeded now into the planet.
So John, can you tell me how you would see your work as a tool for reaching different level of consciousness, perhaps?
As humans, we're used to different levels of consciousness. We go to sleep every day and we enter dream states. It's not something that's alien to us, and we enter trance state. We're waiting for a bus and the hour goes by quite happily and the bus arrives. If we're not in a trance, we're uptight. It's awful, isn't it, when we're waiting for a bus? But if we just forget about it and we're in that sort of dreamy trance state that I used to get in mathematics class, be looking out the window, then the bus arrives quite happily and we're not stressed out. But there's another thing as well, which is that sort of magical space where, this lovely, warm, magical feeling, which we look to substances to try and find. So we'll look to alcohol or we'll look to drugs to reach that lovely magical space where we're dancing and we're happy. And the trouble, of course, with the substances is they're addictive and they're bad for our bodies. All of them. Alcohol, we know it causes all sorts of problems socially, and also it ruins our bodies, poisons us. And then we find that music quickly will, if we particularly use the drum, will take us into those magical spaces. Our heartbeats change, our consciousness is quickly changed. We can choose to follow the map of a celebration rhythm that's got a very high tempo, and we're not just listening to music, we're playing music. I always used to notice at a concert, the people having the real fun are the musicians, and the audience, if they're lucky, they get woven into it. But the real fun is in playing the music. It affects us really strongly. And we find with the drum that we quickly enter those beautiful, mad and trippy states without any worries that we can't drive home, without any worries that we'll be psychologically challenged to remember what's real and what isn't. No side effects in that way at all. We're high as a kite, bang, next second, all right, time to go. Good night, and off we go. Very interesting for teenagers to enter that state, because they're getting hit quite hard with this thing. Oh yeah, try some ecstasy, try a bit of this, have some alcohol, have a smoke, and there's huge peer pressure. But also, teenagers love danger. They love that sort of wow, magical thing. And so, with the drum, you can enter that magical space. There's no possibility that they're going to get addicted or find that it's bad for their bodies, and they'll find they don't actually need the danger. They're safely in that magical space.
Our next guest in this program is Martin Duffy, who talks about the link between ancient Celtic traditions and other shamanic traditions throughout the world. He reminds us of the importance of connecting with nature and explain how shamanic journeying can assist us in our daily lives. Martin, you are the director of the Irish Centre for Shamanic Studies in Dundary Park in County Meath. I was wondering if you could tell us about the importance of our shamanic heritage and how this can help us to rebuild our communities.
Well, to begin with, I'd like to say that shamanism is the oldest spiritual tradition on the planet, going back over 50,000 years. Our ancestors, when they evolved, began to realize that their connection to nature was vital for the survival of the species. Our ancestors saw that everything was alive, everything was animated, and they needed to commune with the spirits of the rocks, the mountains, the rivers, and the animals that they hunted and lived with. When we talk about our ancestors, we're going back that far. These practices have come into our modern ways through our religious rituals, our psychological treatments, and other ways of working with, like in hypnotherapy and NLP. These are all based on ancient shamanic practices. And essentially what a shaman does is journeys into non-ordinary reality, through the mind's eye, into the world of imagination, to commune with the wondrous energies and spirit and archetypes beyond everyday reality. Now, in terms of today's society, we tend to live in what I call flatland, which means we live within the ego structure of the mind, and we get caught up in the everyday concerns and cut off from nature, cut off from our soul, and cut off from each other in community. When we work shamanically, we come together in community to do rituals and ceremonies and to journey. Now, the type of journeying we do here is with the drum. The drum is used to bring us into what we call a shamanic trance state, which is something that isn't that too much difficult to understand from our everyday experience, in the sense that it's journeying into non-ordinary reality, into the dream times, as the shamans talk about, like in a meditation or in a visualization, where we connect with our deeper selves. What we do in a particular journey would be to commune with a power animal, a spirit guide, or a spirit of a tree, spirit of the river, or we might go to the upper world where we meet the angelic beings, or spirit guides, as we call them. And what we do is we ask for help and healing with these beings that are beyond their own ego knowledge, and so therefore receive information, help and healing directly from that greater mystery that we're all a part of. And the information often comes through as a verbal guidance. Sometimes it happens as a physical healing. Other times it'll come through as an intuition about something we need to change in our lives. And there's often a telepathic communion with these spirit beings that we work with. Then when you do ritual out in nature, it helps us clear away any of the old stuff that we're carrying, any old emotional or psychological baggage. One thing that's missing, I find, today in today's society is that sense of communion with ourselves, the wider spirit world, and each other in community. So what we do here in Dundurry Park in County Meath is we have groups that come together regularly to do ceremony and ritual together, and to journey and support each other. So we have a special cairn here that we do work in. We do work with the ancient sweat lodge ceremony. We also have a fire walk ceremony. All of these are meant to push us beyond our ordinary ego concerns and to empower us to be more than what we thought we are. A lot of people think, shamanism is something that the Native Americans did, or the Aborigines in Australia. And it's all ancient stuff now, and there's no significance in today's culture. I completely disagree with that, because if anything, we need that communion more now than ever. And the fascinating thing about shamanism is it is and was a cross-cultural phenomenon. Before there was such a thing as internet or telephones or whatever, shamanism was a part of every culture, and the amazing thing is that it was very similar in every culture where it existed. So in ancient Ireland, we had our ancestors practice the old Celtic ways of Druidism, and even before that, there's evidence in the megalithic tombs that our ancestors were communing with nature as part of their religious and spiritual traditions. The same kind of thing happened with the Aborigines in Australia, or the indigenous Indians in the Amazon, or in the Native Americans, or indeed in Siberia. And if you peel away the cultural differences, you find it's exactly the same practices were used, and that is the shaman journeyed to commune with nature and the spirit world in order to look for help and healing. Now, in the shamanic cosmology, there's 3 realms: the lower, the middle, and the upper world. The lower world is a place where you go to engage with power. If we feel disempowered, we connect with the natural power of nature. The middle world we journey to for divination and to find lost objects, remote viewing, that kind of thing. And then the upper world is a place we journey to get deeper wisdom and knowledge about the nature of our place in the cosmos. What is our karmic imperative? What is our myth that we're trying to work out here? The bigger questions, the bigger stories of our lives. When you put it in context like that, you find that shamanism gives the individual the opportunity to step out of their own confined idea of who they are, and allows them to engage with the forces of nature and the creative principle in the cosmos that we're all naturally a part of. And this is very significant in these times we live in now. We're moving towards what the Mayans talked about, the end of an era, end of an epoch. On the winter solstice 2012, the Mayan calendar ends. And they said that all that we had built up in the world that was false or not in harmony with the emerging creative principle of the cosmos would fall away. Now, all you have to do is open a newspaper or turn on your television or switch on your radio, and you see what's happening in the world. The old order is falling apart. The financial system has crumbled. The political system is also crumbling. The religious order is changing rapidly. And people are searching for something that is to give them hope and solace in this time of turmoil, this time of death and rebirth. And I notice now there is a quite an amazing resurgence in shamanism, because it means that people can connect to their own divine nature and their own spiritual path directly without having to have it mediated for them by the priest or the rabbi or by the politician. And so therefore they can trust themselves, trust their own community, and trust their guides in the other world. When we look at it from that perspective, we begin to see that what is happening in the world at the moment is a natural cycle taking place. And when we can see it from that perspective, we can see it that it's something that needs to emerge and needs to change, and it's not necessarily a bad thing. It may be a frightening thing, because all change is frightening. But if we understand why it's happening, and that it's a natural cycle of the earth, that humanity itself is emerging as a new being, in the sense that consciousness is evolving all the time, and we're just in the next phase of this consciousness evolution. And in fact, if it doesn't happen and we don't evolve consciously, our species is in danger of destroying itself. It's overemphasis on materialism, and the loss of spirituality and the loss of connection to soul will create a society that will implode on itself. We need to go back to our old values, the values our ancestors held sacred, of honouring nature, treating the earth as a living being, the Gaia, the goddess principle, and to stop our rampant consumeristic race towards materialism and the path of ego, and to go on the inner journey more and connect with our deeper nature. Our ancient ancestors provided us with a model and a system, which is shamanism. What I'd like to do now is take you on a journey into the healing power of nature. And in shamanism, we talk about going to the lower world to connect with the power of nature. So what I'd like to do is just take a moment and just connect with your breathing. If you're driving, pull over the car. If you're doing something at home, just take a moment to sit down, connecting with your breathing. Just close your eyes and just imagine yourself. Shamanism is about moving into the dream time of our imagination. So just imagine yourself traveling into a beautiful place in nature, a wild part of nature, somewhere deep in the forest, deep in the woods or in the mountains. And as you're walking along the path, just feel the wind on your face, feel the leaves beneath your feet, And just feel yourself communing with the trees as you go by. Feel their energy and feel your energy merging with them. It's almost like you can hear them whispering. You can hear them speaking to you. And you become aware of all the animals in the forest. And you realize that you're in communion with them too. That as you tune in telepathically to this place, you realize that everything is alive, everything is conscious. You hear a message on the wind coming to you. You hear the raven or the birds, you hear the wolves howl in the distance. And as you come into a clearing in the forest, you find yourself in a beautiful meadow where the sun is shining. It warms your skin, warms your body. You sit down on a rock and just sitting in that space, just send out an intention or an invitation for a power animal to come to you. And as you stay in this meditative state, you notice coming out of the forest an animal walking towards you. And you realize that this is a friendly encounter. This animal is here to help you. Just notice who the animal is. And as it comes up to you, it sits down in front of you, and you feel this heart-opening energy between you. And then you feel this telepathic communication opening up. So ask this power animal for help with a particular issue in your life. And now notice what this animal says to you, or communicates to you, or what you feel in your body. And when you've got your answer, just thank your power animal. Take a moment to come back to yourself, leaving the forest, coming back into the room or the place you are now, back into your body, becoming grounded, becoming present, becoming here. Just opening your eyes and giving thanks for the life that's in you, feeling that pulse of life in your body and in your being, and offering gratitude for the opportunity that this life has given you to experience yourself as you are in this moment. Thank you.
In conclusion, the underlying message of spiritual leaders in Irish ancient and modern societies shows us the strength and the power of our spiritual heritage, and the importance of faith in our everyday lives and in rebuilding a sense of community. You were listening to Irish Spirituality, Then and Now. Produced and presented by Marie-Angeline Lascaux, this program was made with the support of Sound and Vision Broadcasting Funding Scheme, a BCI initiative.